Hello again, welcome back to Everywoman, where we're marking International Women's Day. Now, in recent years, there's been a boom in the number of successful women journalists and presenters in the media. American host Oprah Winfrey, for example, is one of the most influential people in the world. But unfortunately, media equality is a bit of an illusion. Programmes like Everywoman are an anomaly. According to the Global Media Monitoring Report, women's issues are largely underreported and news correspondents are overwhelmingly men. So, are we breaking through in the tough world of media, or is it still a boys' club? Well, Rachel Ellison is a consultant on women's rights and the media. She's worked for the BBC and for the charity Action Aid, and I'm pleased to say she joins us now from our London studio. Rachel, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. First of all, you set up an important radio programme in Afghanistan, Afghan Woman's Hour. Tell us about that and what it's achieved.
Well, Afghan Women's Hour really was welcomed by both men and women across Afghanistan and, interestingly, those listening online around the world in the Afghan diaspora community. And that programme was set up to disseminate women's rights messages, to teach women about health issues, education issues, to bring them aspirational role models, which we did in the form of a little mini-series we had on the programme called Jobs Women Can Do. We were tackling all the horrible aspects of being a woman in Afghanistan, giving birth at home, girls who were kidnapped, women who'd been sold as girls to settle their father's debts. We tackled all sorts of issues that are well known in Afghan society, but no one had actually spoken about before. But we also planted an exciting aspiration, I hoped, or that was my intention anyway, towards conflict resolution, towards girls and women knowing their rights and being able to enforce them, and also, crucially, bringing men on board and getting them enthusiastic about what matters to women and why.
It sounds wonderful. There is an argument from critics that programmes like that and programmes like Everywoman actually only serve to marginalise women's issues and they should be better left to the mainstream. What do you say about that?
I think, Julie, that depends on which country and which culture you're making that comment, because certainly in the West that argument has been had over the last 35 years, where women's programming was set up, and at first it was very anti-men. It was women fighting like crazy to have a voice. And now many of those women, you and me for example, we have that voice. Here we are. So in that context, great. But in many other contexts, I've just done some work for the charity Action Aid in Kenya. I've been working across Central Asia, in Afghanistan and Tajikistan, and there those women don't have rights, they don't have a voice, and some of them don't even know what their rights are. So successfully has it been hidden by their societies.
In terms of who decides what news coverage or story coverage should be, though, even in the developed world, Britain, America, the overwhelming majority of those decision makers are men. Does that change the kind of issues that get covered, do you think?
I think there's a real danger in that. Some of my greatest supporters on the women's programme were men, interestingly. So there is a body of men that really sees this as the way forward in countries right across the globe. In contrast, I've also seen plenty of television programmes in the West as well, where a man and a woman sit together as presenters on a news programme, and the man does all the hard stories and the woman does all the soft ones. We also see correspondents, you know, often the men of war, they're called in the newsroom, because they are frequently men. But let's not forget that there are women across Africa who are busy reporting. Let's be optimistic. It's International Women's Day. Let's say there's a growing consciousness and awareness of precisely the point you make, of male editors and the decisions that male editors make themselves. How aware are they of their decision making? And I am of the belief that men are becoming increasingly aware.
So in the countries that you've worked in, what are the kind of issues that you would like to see more prominence given to?
Women's land rights I'd like to see something on. I'd like to see textbooks reviewed in certain countries. What are these stereotypes that girls are imbibing as they read their textbooks in school, where the role models are women become cleaners and men become airline pilots? And I'd also like to see boys taken on board to enable and empower their sisters, because in countries where, again, there is great poverty, there isn't always light by which to do your homework, and girls are asked to wash the clothes and make the food and clean the house. and after that they can do their homework, and if that's at 9 o'clock at night, it's dark and they're exhausted. So there's something here about getting their brothers to share the chores in order to enable girls to get a better education. And of course education leads to aspiration, and that leads to longer life expectancy for those girls when they become women, but also for the babies that they have when they become wives.
Rachel, you're clearly preaching to the converted here, to all of us here at Everywoman. I think it's really good stuff, and particularly Afghan Women's Hour has been a tremendous success. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us here on Everywoman.
That's my pleasure.
Well, to China now, where millions of migrant workers are fueling the economic boom by seeking jobs in the cities. It's a chance to escape grinding poverty in their rural hometowns. Yet for many, it's a painful journey, as they lack basic rights and seemingly have little value as human beings. We followed one young woman from Gansu province who, like many, went in search of a better life.
My name is Ni Airong. I'm 19 years old. I come from Gansu province. The northwestern part of China where I live is very poor. Our only concern is to solve basic problems like food and shelter. It feels like a really tough life, difficult to earn money. There are no opportunities to develop yourself. I worked on the fields for more than half a year to a year. I really couldn't take it. There's nothing to see at home, so I wanted to go to the big city. Here we're only in contact with people from within our village, and the people here have a lower level of culture. In Beijing, you get to meet people from all over China. I can see what other people's lifestyles are like.
At first, I didn't want to let her go. I was worried she might run into some danger. But then, I realized her aunt lives in Beijing, and I was reassured, so I let her go.
It was always my dream to come to Beijing, to see Tiananmen and Chairman Mao's picture. He is very famous. He was, after all, China's leader. So I wanted to see all those. That's why I came to Beijing. On that day, when we were arriving on the train, we saw all those cars on the street. Mercedes, Benz and Santana. All those cars, coming and going. So many of them. It was fascinating. After I came to Beijing, I was assigned to a company to do housekeeping work. When I arrived, the second day I met the client. She was really fierce. She was not very nice to me. She abused me and sometimes slapped me. I feel that these rich people look down on working class people like us. I didn't have much money at that time, so I decided to run away. Next, I went to work in a roast-duck restaurant in southwestern Beijing. It was a big restaurant. I was a senior kitchen hand over there. One day, my hand was accidentally sucked into the noodle pressing machine. I was not paying attention when the machine was working. My 4 fingers were crushed, all severely damaged. My hand now is not the same as before. When I work, I can't lift heavy things. My surgery and the doctor's bills cost more than $500. The restaurant refused to pay. They gave me less than $40. Months later, I couldn't afford to wait any longer, so I asked the people from the Labor Department, and they said, if your employer doesn't pay you, you should go to the Labor Arbitration Bureau and sue them. So I went there and sued them. If I were a Beijing person, I think the employer would have helped me make a claim directly, because a Beijing person would know all her rights. But I just came to Beijing not long ago, and I don't know anything about these matters. For migrants like us, if you are not educated, you can only work in the food and beverage industry, or do housekeeping work, or you could sell clothing. There's not much choice. I've just come home for the first time since going to Beijing. It feels different. I don't know whether my home has changed or I have changed. After coming home, everything at home feels really old. Not as good as it used to look. It looks different. I'd like to work and study at the same time, learn how to use the computer, and find some clerical job or some other better job. I want to go to other cities and look around, see what they're like. For every place you go, the people you meet and the things you see are different. I want to see the world.
And we wish her the best of luck. And finally, in this week of International Women's Day, we would like to thank the men who've supported us. We often receive mail from around the world, and this week we got a great response from a Kenyan football team over our recent coverage of female genital mutilation. The team has launched a campaign to put an end to the practice. Here's what it had to say. We've been playing football, urging the youth to be in the forefront of the fight against FGM, since the girls who are suffering are either our sisters or future wives. The practice is still widespread in this part of Africa, and it's time we all say no to FGM. Hear, hear, and thanks very much indeed for your comments. And that's it for now. If you have anything to say about the programme, then please email us at everywoman@aljazeera.net. We always love hearing from you. But for now, from me and the whole Everywoman team, bye-bye.